Welcome to the She Wrote, He Wrote podcast with Ashley and Jordan. I'm Ashley Wren Collins.
And I am Jordan Rockwell.
We are so thrilled to have you here today. We have some very exciting guests. I want to introduce my dear friend and super talented colleague. You have seen her work. Her name is Uma Incrocci. She told me I could do her last name like that. She is the Hallmark Channel screenwriter of Romance with a Twist, Nature of Love, A Christmas Carousel, and Hats Off to Love, which at the time of this recording is currently showing on Netflix. She's also an actress. You may have seen her on Modern Family, How to Get Away with Murder, Jane the Virgin, and Lipstick Jungle. She's also a very accomplished playwright. Uma was born in India, grew up in Italy, and is a native Los Angelino. Jordan, tell us about our other guest.
What was that?
I don't know.
All righty. And the equally important guest, okay, not the other guest, is Talia Gonzalez. She was the co-executive producer on season 5 of Netflix's Virgin River. Prior to that, she wrote for ABC's Promised Land, Netflix's Fate the Winx Saga, and 2 seasons on CBS's Hawaii Five-0 as a writer-producer. Previous staffing jobs include 3 seasons on CW's iZombie and 1 season on MTV's Teen Wolf. Talia's written 3 features for Hallmark, most recently Never Too Late. To celebrate, a rom-com starring Alexa Penavega, which was nominated for Best TV Movie Canadian Screen Award. The Finish Line, a Christmas movie for 2024, shooting in Finland. She also wrote a murder mystery feature for Netflix, Wedding to Die For, with Rosalind Sanchez and Eric Winter attached, as well as a murder mystery feature for Hallmark with Judy Smith as a consulting producer. Talia is currently developing scripted shows with, excuse my pronunciation here, Nuyorican Productions, Sony, Josephine, and Muse Entertainment. Welcome aboard, ladies. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Yes.
you so much. Thank you for
Anyway.
the fancy intros.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you know, we are in the business of love and relationships, simply because Jordan is my partner on
A professional partner.
and a professional
she
partner. No. We are happily married to other people. But my co-author on a romance novel, and we thought, if we're talking about love and relationships, who better to talk about than people who are writing movies for the Hallmark Channel? And we have seen that the romance movie industry, not only are romance novels the number one genre, but romance movie industry is projected to be something like 47 billion by 2032. So, I mean, I think in life it's fair to say that everybody wants love. What that looks like might be different, right? But we all want it, or we're chasing it, or we're upset with the one we have. Something. So I would love to hear. Let's hear a little bit of I think we just read your bios, but what you do, and if we can specifically talk about Hallmark and the journey of writing a movie for Hallmark. You want to start, Uma?
So Hallmark goes from making greeting cards to now they're in the movie business and they're making
Right. So you can tell us about your first one. I mean, how did you end up? Is it something that you fell into?
Oh gosh. Well, I was watching Hallmark movies and I love rom-coms, and I was wondering, why are so many of these not very good? To be honest, like I wanted the dialogue to be better. I just was like, I think I could do this, basically. Some people are inspired by like really great art. I'm often inspired by mediocre art. Sorry. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, I could do that, And so I wrote a spec script, basically, and then eventually through that, eventually got my first job, which was on Nature of Love, which was, they actually came to me with the idea of the production company that was working on that movie was like, we have this glamping script that we need to go in another direction. Would you be willing to give it a try? And so that was my first professional gig. Very quickly doing research on bird watching and I don't even remember, all kinds of like outdoorsy things like rappelling. None of that stuff made it into the final movie. But that was my first foray into the Hallmark world. But it really just came out of a love of the genre. And I love a sparky banter, right? Like I just wanted to get my chance to write some fun, sparky banter, the kind of stuff that I would want to see when I'm watching those kinds of movies.
Sure. And so that was an example of a script that came to you, and then you basically had to make it better. Is that right?
There wasn't really a script at all. It was just the idea of all I got was she gets sent to a glamping resort to write a magazine article about the glamping resort and falls in love with the guy who can do all the things there, like the very outdoorsy guy there.
Right, right. My daughter keeps saying, I really want to go camping. And we keep telling her, you were born into the wrong family, but we would definitely go glamping.
I don't camp. I glamp. We
Oh, yeah,
glamp.
Glamp.
Cub
glamping.
Scouts. That's cute. We have the
I love
trailers
the
and
glamping. I'm dying to do the
Chardonnay.
one. Did you do it, the one in Governor's Island, where you spend the night on Governor's Island?
No, that sounds incredible.
I know. I really want to do
It was pretty goofy though, because they wanted her to be like not outdoorsy and sort of afraid of camping, but you're like glamping, she's fine, you know?
Right.
So it was interesting to be like
glamping, there's a toilet that's not a porta potty, right? I mean, like
a full bathtub in her tent, you know? So it was, but so then it sort of had to be more about the activities and whatever, and just fundamentally about the differences between them, right? Her being a city mouse and him being a country mouse, right? You always have to figure out what their differences are and how they meet in between.
Sure. And did you get to visit the set of that one when that was being made?
No, I did not.
You did
Yeah.
not. Do you know where it was shot, that one?
I think it was, I forget exactly, but it was a beautiful area near Vancouver. Yeah, they almost all shoot in Canada, so that was another Canadian one.
Yeah, and for our listeners who might not know, they're shooting in Canada because they probably get some pretty great tax credits and incentives, and it's cheaper than it is to do in New York or
California.
otherwise. But there are some great.
We are working to get production back here.
Yeah, there are some great cities and states that do have wonderful tax credit programs in the U.S., but it can be challenging.
And I wanted to throw out actually, Talia, that I loved The Finish Line, and that year that was the Hallmark movie I was recommending to everybody, because a lot of times people will ask me, be like, "Oh, what's good?" And I'm like, "This is the one you should watch." So I just found it so charming, and I loved whenever they allow the movies to actually be funny. I love that, and I really appreciated the humor in it. So congratulations!
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
And so Talia, share about us. I mean, you were doing some other traditional television shows before you moved to writing for Hallmark. Is that right?
Yes, I I had been writing pretty much exclusively for TV when a friend of mine who was an exec at Hallmark had a script that needed to be rewritten. So that was sort of my entry into Hallmark. So it was a page one rewrite. So it definitely the idea stayed, but everything else kind of changed. And that was a murder mystery. So so that was fun, and a kind of a different muscle, than your typical rom-com or Christmas movie fare. And then I started pitching other ideas, and I sold two different ideas. And due to just an executive leaving the company, that one kind of fell away. And then there was one that was really close to my heart that would have involved the Boston Pops, which is where I'm from, Boston. And then I think their director changed and maybe wasn't as interested, so that fell by the wayside as well. And then similar to Uma, a producer that I had worked with before had an idea that they liked that was about a quinceanera, but they wanted a different execution. So it was sort of like, here's a paragraph of what we submitted, but basically like the idea of a double quince, somebody turning 30, just run with it. So I was able to really make that one my own. And my dad was from Mexico, so it was very there was just a lot of like my story, and not totally autobiographical, but there was a lot that I was able to put in there. So that one was really special. And then concurrent to that, it just so happened that you're constantly pitching. I don't know about Uma, but I'm constantly pitching ideas to Hallmark. Just trying to get something to get through. So happened to also be pitching ideas for a Christmas movie that would take place in Finland, because a producer wanted to, and director wanted to shoot there. So they were like, just come up with Christmas movies that could take place in Finland. And it just so happened that they liked one of, the dog sled racing one, which required a lot of research as well. I didn't know anything about dog sled racing until, or Finland for that matter. So yeah, so that was sort of the trajectory. And then both of them kind of, one came out in the fall, I think, and then one came out for Christmas.
Well,
Awesome.
I always say it's so interesting.
Congrats.
So I got my start writing nonfiction books with a sense of humor, so they were more palatable and easy to digest and just more fun to make your way through. But they would be about these subject matters that I knew nothing about. So you had to like sort of, I guess, put on your acting helmet because I know all of us have acted, right, and sort of dive deep and so, I mean, that sounds like what you had to do about the dog sled world, or Uma about learning about rappelling, and then I know later, Uma, you wrote a movie about aerialists, so you had to like learn about that. Yeah.
Yes, I've done a lot of like fringe sports, like or fringe arts. I one is about a carousel restorer, and yes, and I also did one that hasn't gotten made yet about a magician as well. So I did a lot of research into that. But the aerial stuff was really fun. I ended up talking to a lot of aerialists. And I mean, God bless YouTube, right? There's everything. So I could watch people's like first lessons of aerial on YouTube and get a sense of what that would be like for the scene where she goes to her first aerial lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hallmark has done so much that part of it is really trying to find something niche that they haven't done before. So you find yourself, going to the fringe, like, yeah, what can I do? What can I research that will, be interesting enough and then also not feel like, obviously every movie is balanced with romance, but also there's something else. And if that something else isn't enough, then you find yourself really struggling to, it's like almost like you're treading water, and that's not a great way to approach writing. So yeah, it's like I was like, I need like a Bible of like everything they've done, everything in the pipeline, because it's so hard to, you think you've come up with something that they've never done, and then they're like, oh no, that's it, that's in production. You're like,
Yeah, I just had two what I thought were super cute original ideas, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we already have those going on." It was just
yeah.
like,
Wouldn't it be so helpful to have a database or something?
that
Yeah.
would be amazing. I
I
mean,
should have that
obviously,
database.
the first thing you do, and I teach a class too on how to pitch a Hallmark movie, and the first thing I say is like, you must Google this before you come and tell me about it. Like, I need you to know, I need you to have looked up to make sure it wasn't already 7 Hallmark movies before you come to tell me about it. Yeah.
It is helpful. There's an app that will list their past movies, just not ones that are in development.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's impossible to know all the projects that they've considered and discarded and or bought and sat on the shelf or exactly changed hands through, the corporate shuffle a million times. Yeah.
And I know, Uma, you said, uh, oh wait, I just totally had a brain fart. We're gonna delete that. But anyways, what was I gonna say?
Got
My
me.
God, it's so like my brain.
Well, I
I
mean,
know we've been doing it for 3 days. No, I had a really great question, but you want to ask
it,
yours first? Go ahead.
it's the old like South Park this episode like the Simpsons did is that they had an idea for
Oh, I know
like
what's gonna.
it was gonna be like Cartman like blotting out the sun, and they like developed it throughout the week because they do these South Park episodes in 6 days. Like day 4, like an assistant walked past me. Oh yeah, I was in the Simpsons. Like wait, what? And turns out the Simpsons did it, and they kept like accidentally ripping the Simpsons off, and they kind of went with
I
it.
mean, it's the same thing when you come up
Jokes.
with a book idea. You have
Yeah,
to see if it's
but
been done
you
before.
gotta, I
But
mean, they say you only have 7 stories, but Hallmark's got a way to spin a whole bunch of them.
we were talking just in country music stars and singer songwriters and about all the different. There's only 9 themes in country music. Anyways, we digress. But what I wanted to know was, Uma, you had said you were watching Hallmark Channel movies, so you were familiar and had seen them. Talia, when you did your first one, which I guess was a Hallmark mystery, did you go watch a bunch of mysteries or see how they were formulated, or you just took your knowledge of how to write and screenplays and you were like, I don't need to do that?
I feel like Hallmark is so specific about how they thing. There's like a Hallmark way of doing everything, whether it's Christmas or so. I do. I mean, it was a while ago, but I do think I read some other scripts that worked. Yes, some ones that maybe were part of a franchise for them that they thought was really good. And then obviously watched them as well, and then the development exec kind of walked me through. It's it's this push-pull with the romantic leads because he's a cop and she's not a cop and she wants to help solve the mystery, but she's not supposed to. So it's like you have to keep that going, but not have it be so annoying and stale that it's like, okay, we get it. She can't help because eventually he has to let her help. And eventually they have to, so it's that witty banter, but not necessarily romance until the very end when it's like, oh, okay, like maybe this could be a thing. And that movie did end with the possibility of a second and third, and that just never happened. So they didn't. They might have had their kiss, but they didn't really get to have. I think we held hoping that there would be more movies for them to explore the relationship. But yeah, definitely had to do my homework with that one.
And when you're doing your first Hallmark movie, is someone saying like, "Look, this is the checklist of what you're going to have to hit and what they're going to look for," or is that something you're learning as you go and you're not getting until you get notes on the script or whatnot?
I don't remember there being, I wish there was a formal checklist that would have been really helpful. I think they just kind of walk you through. Um, I mean, it's you sort of developing the idea and handing in an outline, and from there getting notes. I remember getting notes, fairly often for each draft, and was able to go through all of the steps until the end. Um, so I'm sure in the outline phase is where the most knowledge was bestowed in terms of this is how we like to do it, and um, these are the kinds of detective beats we're looking for, and the kind of cop lingo and all of that. Yeah, it's much more technical to me than writing a traditional rom-com. I have not written a murder mystery for them since.
Well, you just said a trigger word for anybody who has had experiences in Hollywood about getting notes. I mean, I don't know what you want to talk about on the air, but like we all get good notes and not so good notes, and like what skill sets to develop of how to differentiate between them, and also how to navigate around bad notes.
Well, it must be hard. I also want to know, and piggybacking on that, so you guys can answer, is it like, uh, do you have to take all the notes?
Yeah.
Because like with our publisher had some notes on our book, and there were a couple things we said no to, and they were like, okay.
We had to pick and choose our battles, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's like,
so I don't know, but it's a whole different ballgame. So if you guys can speak to those things, that'd be great.
In my experience, I mean, notes are completely dependent upon the person giving them. So sometimes you get people that are really clear and specific about what they want. Other times you're getting global notes, and sometimes it's a little less clear, and it's harder to execute because you're not quite sure what they're looking for. They just know what they don't want. But I feel like the notes process at the beginning is sort of more global, and as you go, it becomes more granular. And yes, I think that I've definitely pushed back on with, so sometimes you're working directly with the executives at Hallmark, and sometimes you're going in with a production company, and so that production company might be the one giving you notes first, and then you'll get notes from the Hallmark executives, and that's sort of in an effort to get the script further along before the executives, who are very busy making so many Christmas movies and such, before they have to get eyes on it. So in my experience, I have gotten bad notes in my writing career, but I've been very lucky at Hallmark in that the producers I've worked with have been really flexible. If it's something that you feel really strongly about, and then sometimes they give you a note and you're like, how did I not know that? That I think I had, it was sort of like she was following him, at the end of the movie, and they were like, he should follow her, and I'm like, of course, that's totally what it should be. So sometimes it's yeah, the notes are super helpful, and help you to see things that maybe you didn't see in the script. But then once the notes are given by the producer and the executive at Hallmark, they'll often give very like I said, granular page notes, and those generally you have to take because they might just be things that the network doesn't do or can't do, or that you don't always know the note behind the note, and you don't know who's necessarily giving it. So those generally you'll take, and that's usually when you're really close to the finish line. So
No pun intended. That was one end, the finish line.
yeah, that's I guess that's my experience with notes.
What about you, Emma?
Well, I just want to acknowledge that I think I actually heard this on another writing podcast where they talked about how getting notes can trigger fight or flight. And in a way that was so
Oh my
helpful for
God.
me because I was
Yeah.
like, why do I feel not well? Like, why am I having this just like, and I usually don't get notes in person. It's just a horrible email, you know what I mean? And you're just like sweaty and your heart is racing and you're just like, what is happening to me? And so the first thing I do is just like acknowledge, like, this is, no matter what it is, it's probably going to make you feel terrible for a while. And also the sort of, and again, I think this is a thing that a lot of writers talk about, like the 3 stages of notes. The first one's like F you to whoever gave you the notes. And then you're like, F me, I have to take these notes. I'm going to die. I'm never going to be able to do this. My life is over. Um, and then the third state is like, okay, let's get to work, right? And eventually you're like, okay, I can actually look at these. And that's for me, the thing is, when I get notes that maybe at first I don't understand or I think might be bad, I force myself. Sometimes I even just set the timer. I'm like, I'm setting the timer for 5 minutes and I have to see if I can take this note because I can't fight about it without having done this. And usually, because I'm the one who has to solve it, I can usually come up with a solution that I can live with, right? That takes their notes, but solves it in a story way that I doesn't make me want to die. So as long as I can fix it in my own way, I find that usually that helps a lot is finding the solution that I can live with. Um, I will just note, like, for example, I have gotten the note of like, you must cut characters from this script. This script has to have between 11 and 13 characters when my script already has 12 characters. So sometimes you really are getting these sort of like, and I guess you're talking about like sort of general notes that feel very unspecific and sort of you're like, did anybody even read this? And it's so wonderful when you are working with people who give you wonderful notes and you're like, oh, that's so insightful. Or they're like, I can see where you just pretended you knew what was happening here. What really happens here? And you're like, all right, you were right. Like I was faking my way through this section. Yeah, but it is, I wish it wasn't so emotional, but it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what you create part of it comes out of your soul, and that's where it gets hard. That stage 1 happens. Oh God.
Yeah. And even when it's something that they came to, you know what I mean? I wasn't like, my dream is to write a movie about a girl who goes glamping, but you get invested in it. You have to, or else you wouldn't be able to do the job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have an ego about it, it's
Yeah.
true. It's like those first set of notes feel like panicky because you're gonna have to pull all these threads and there's the whole thing going to unravel. And to your, yeah, exactly what you said, Uma. Am I going to be able to execute all of these things? Because there's never not notes. There's always going to be a lot of notes and finding exactly what they want. So yeah, for sure. I mean, even the best notes. The page notes that come at the end, you're like, oh, good. We're like, these are, I can do this in a half hour. But those first few rounds are always pretty overwhelming.
And then, it's, I guess it feels like both of you came to your first projects for Hallmark in a convoluted or different way. But then when you got to your second one, is that one where I know you said you were pitching or you were doing a treatment first, before you did a script, or how did those work from, typically from then on?
My second one was a Christmas carousel, and that we sold that. I say we because I work closely with the producer, and we sold that based off a one pager, and that's the way that a lot of these Hallmark movies get pitched and sold, is just like a one page. And it's, in my case, I don't know, Talia, you tell me. Mine are never actually just one page. It's really hard to get them to one page. But basically, beginning, middle, and end, just a little like prose short story about what happens in the movie. So that one we sold based on that, and then you move to treatment, and then they approve the treatment. I feel like for me the treatment stage is really important because that way they can give you big structural notes where they're like, we hate the little girl, or we don't want this to happen, before you've put all the time and energy into the script, and then from there to the script. So yeah. And that's really, I would say that's the same process for every project that I've worked on.
Has that been the case for you as well, Talia?
So after the first project that I sold that then went away, that was just coming up with a slew of ideas, just trying to get the next film. And then after that, the third one was an idea that was brought to me. And then from there, it was just more pitching, like I had mentioned before. And yes, it's always the same process. I feel like it used to be pretty short, like maybe a paragraph, then it was a one pager. Now it could be up to a 3 pager. It does seem like you have to come with a much more fully formed idea than in days of yore. And then if they like the idea and they buy the idea, then you write the treatment and then move to script.
Now, have you ever had an idea where you have the idea and they're like, oh, yeah, I mean, you were saying, oh, no, we've done that or whatever. And then you go and it's pretty easy to swap it for something else. You're like, let's put in some different locations and professions and whatnot. And, you know, zhuzh it to be something else.
I've definitely looked at Christmas pitches because at Hallmark, it wasn't always this way, but it is now that executives are grouped by team. So there's the Christmas team, there's the rom-com team. So I've definitely looked at Christmas pitches that didn't work and said, like, can I strip out Christmas and still have a viable rom-com? Because it's a good idea, right? And you don't always, what is right for one person, or is interesting to one person might not be to the next. That being said, if it is a true Christmas rom-com for Hallmark, then Christmas should be integral to the story and hard to strip out, which is perhaps why it didn't sell in the first place. But I've done that before for sure.
What about you, Emma?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I have one script where there's an evergreen version, that's the non-Christmas version, and then a Christmas version. And all the time, I mean, something that I often reuse is like love blocks that people have, or sort of characteristics of the leads, where
The
it's like,
obstacle that's preventing them from being able to.
yeah, or they're just even their emotional whatever. It's like, oh, she has imposter syndrome. I call it the soft relatable flaw that the protagonist has. And because of course in Hallmark she can't be like an alcoholic, right? She has something very, very charming that, maybe is just a little bit of a flaw, and that the idea being that by the end of the movie, the love story is going to help her with this flaw. Right. So that's the kind of thing. Those are honestly hard. There's not so many soft relatable flaws. So that's totally the kind of thing that I might lift from story to story, or just some kind of, something that somebody believes about love or about themselves. A lot of times I'll move those over. I also, I have put a mistletoe picking scene in like 3 or 4 different scripts. It still has none of those scripts have been made. So I just keep lifting that scene and just moving it over. I'm like, maybe they go mistletoe picking. And the same thing with like a specific cookie that my family makes. And I've used that cookie in a lot of scripts. And, one day eventually that cookie scene will happen and then I won't be able to recycle it
You'll
anymore.
have to come up with something else.
There's only so many things you can do at Christmas time.
So many times. So as soon as you come up with something that feels original, you're like, I'll just keep putting it,
Yeah, for sure. What are the spoken or unspoken rules of things that cannot be in a Hallmark movie? Like cursing, right? Nobody's cursing.
No, there's no nudity. There's no
There's no nudity.
It's all like
there's no actual
G-rated.
sex on screen. There's kissing on screen, right? There can be a kiss.
There's no anger. I would say anger is the thing. Like, and I definitely got that note at one point. I think it might have even been in a treatment. They're like, she can be hurt, but she can't be angry. And if you think about it,
well, he can't be angry either. I think either one of them.
This was the specific situation where like she thought her boyfriend was cheating on her, I think is what was happening. And I think I just wrote, in the treatment, like she's hurt and angry, or, angrily she storms out, and they're like, no, wait, she can't be angry. She can be hurt.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That is no anger.
They now they have divorce. They recently had one this Christmas where, somebody got like, their family revealed that they had a terrible diagnosis, the sort of things that they never would have allowed in the past. Couples living together before marriage. That was in the last Christmas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is scandalous, y'all.
The CEO, I think of Hallmark, when I first started writing, he had some specific rules. So, and I remember one of them was dogs couldn't be off leash.
I'm okay with this one, okay?
Yeah, it is true. I get really upset when I see dogs off leash.
I get upset too.
with the
Propaganda.
changing of hands, people, have different things. There was one thing that I was thinking when you were, because those are good ones, for sure. Oh, there was one that just that I tend to write um, very quirky things, and I find that even though Finish Line was very funny, they don't really like a lot of like pop culture reference, or stuff that's like too quirky or weird.
Yeah.
So I
I
have
come
to
up
really
against that a lot as well too, where
tone
I'm
that
like,
down.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to make things funnier or a little bit more off the wall than they're comfortable with, and they're always kind of trying to steer it back towards, yeah, a little
And is
more middle
that
of the
just an aesthetic, or is that wanting to make it feel timeless, or is it both, or
I don't know, but I would imagine it's to capture the largest audience as possible, because humor is so specific, and you don't want to turn somebody off with, I guess, humor that they don't think is funny. And also, I would imagine they do rerun Hallmark movies for a long time. So yeah, if it's too specific, if the humor is too specific to a time period, then that would maybe not make it as timeless, if I had to guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
Another trope that I don't know that and maybe they are open to it, but generally one that I always point out that makes Hallmark movies different than, say, like a Netflix rom-com, is a lot of times in another rom-com, like, women are kind of like a hot mess at the beginning, right? Where like they lost their job, they get dumped in an embarrassing way, like things are bad. And usually they I guess, and I think this is part of what Hallmark doesn't want to make it seem like these women need this man to be okay. These women are usually fine at the beginning of the movie, right? They have like a really beautiful place to live, and they have a wonderful community, and they usually have a really cool job. And so it's like, this is kind of like icing on the cake. And so there are some exceptions, like occasionally you'll sort of see them a little bit down on their luck, but they're never going to be, in the gutter in any way, and I feel like that's kind of an unspoken part of the formula.
I sort of like that unspoken part of the formula, because I mean, part of the thing with romance novels that I think sometimes, you know, the characters are, yeah, like they're really, really hurt, or like things were really bad, or you feel like they might not emotionally recover, or they're totally closed off. And while you need conflict to create great stories, whether they're on the screen or on the page, I mean, I like the idea of, like, yeah, someone who already knows who they are and they're basically happy. And so if love is coming along, it's just adding to your happiness, right?
And the other thing too is, I was fortunate enough to meet with the executives that run the rom-com team, and it's not so much a hard and fast rule, we're not doing this anymore, but if they've done enough of something that is similar, even if it's like a dynamic between the two leads, they're like, okay, we don't want to do that anymore. So for instance, they were like, we're kind of over I call it like the moonlighting-esque dynamic, where, it's like they hate each other at first, and then, they eventually, fall in love at the end. They were saying, we're kind of steering away from that. That being said, 3 years from now, they may want it again. So it also is sort of, for those trying to sell, it's, trying to talk to execs, often, so you can find out what is most current.
And they really have moved away from, and on purpose, they realize sort of it's problematic, this sort of formula of the city woman giving up her powerful job to go live, to go to her hometown and live with the guy who's a Christmas tree farmer. Like, that they've sent this message so many times. They really are moving away from that. And of course, then you'll tune into one and you'll be like, wait, that has that same message. But in general, they are trying to get away from that formula. One way that I really do love to think about it is that it is a genre where good things happen to women. And obviously everybody gets a happy ending in a Hallmark movie, but it is a way that, for me, it feels like, it feels feminist, even though a lot of these movies can be very traditional and sort of, encouraging these traditional roles. There is something lovely about that, right? Like, aren't we sick of watching terrible things happen to women getting murdered, and all the horrible things we've seen in so many other, forms of entertainment, that you're like, well, here, I know something wonderful is going to happen to this charming, talented woman who is the protagonist of this movie.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, there's enough pain and violence and stuff out there. So, yeah, putting something positive.
Well, that's kind of what we had in mind with our book, was just, it was like, we're here to give you a good time,
Yeah,
and that has utility, evergreen.
Yeah.
Evergreen.
You know what I mean? Like, it's got utility, and it's, not every book has to be a Hemingway. What's the Farewell to Arms? It's not, doesn't have to be that sad, tragic, and she's dead. Like, we don't need that all the time.
yeah, no.
I think that
No shade on Hemingway, but
well, I think that's why the network is so popular and has been for so long, because people go there to have an escape and they live vicariously through these characters, and Vancouver is shot so beautifully. So, they're like, I want to go to that magical pretend place, and it's like, you can. It's there. Absolutely. So, yeah, and I think now more than ever, these types of movies and shows are selling more so than maybe the serial killer ones.
Absolutely. Well, because these aren't the kind of movies that you might not pay $20 to go to the movie theater, but when you're home because of streaming and you're home and you're like, it's been a long day, like that is exactly the comfort food that you want to watch, is beautiful people in a beautiful place falling in love.
Yeah, totally.
beautiful people in a beautiful place falling in love. Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also growing and changing, right? I do appreciate that, almost all these movies are about like getting out of your own way and being brave and taking a risk, and growing, right? And connecting with people. So there's always, and I do think that is one thing that a good Hallmark movie does really well is, it does land on something real, like something real about the risks of love, and I think, and I love when you actually get like real feels, even for a second, you're like, oh, wow, that really is true, about the way our heart works or love works, or, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why I try to, you try to approach it from your own, and not to say that every script is autobiographical, but you try to find a piece of yourself in everything that you write. And Ashley, I think you were mentioning too that, for me, like the theme of grief and, my dad passed away a while back now, but both Never Too Late to Celebrate and The Finish Line were dealing with protagonists that were grieving the loss of a parent, and I think it's so relatable and it affects all aspects of your life. So yeah, I encourage people to do the same, to find something. You're not trying to emulate something you've seen on Hallmark, but really trying to bring a piece of something you've experienced and then putting it into that setting.
Well, I think that's why it's so important they always say, write what you know. So there's just some kernel and essence that's inside you, is, you're pouring your heart and soul into what you're doing. And that's going to, reach someone. It might not reach everyone, but it'll reach someone,
Actually had a pastor reach out about Romance with a Twist, and he asked if he could use one of the speeches that the characters gave about fear in the movie in his teachings. Wow. And I was like, of course. And he was like, I Googled it because I figured you got this somewhere and I couldn't find it anywhere. And he had reached out to the director, and the director was like, I think she made it up. I think she just wrote it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it was kind of inspired by, some Liz Gilbert stuff that things that you just pick up that kind of keep you inspired. It was a combination of that and like some things that I read about like what aerialists do to, when they do things at ground level and then you do it higher, and sort of how you sort of mentally talk yourself through that. And that was just an amazing moment of like, wow, like who would have thought that this would have really resonated with someone? It's a speech about Ariel, and he felt like that it could apply to life, which actually in the end of the movie, of course, it's applied to love, because of course it's better if, something you learn about whatever they're learning in the movie then also applies to the love story, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
My God, I love that the pastor's probably like shared it with his whole congregation, or, or his class or whatever it was. And then, so tell us, I mean, it's my understanding that the production of most Hallmark movies is pretty fast, right? When they go into production and they shoot.
Yeah, what's the shooting schedule like?
Is it typically like a month long or so?
I don't know about Uma, but in my experience, when you deliver the script, your part is generally over, and then they hire a production team to go and shoot. As much as I wanted to go to Finland, nobody invited me. So really, the production side of things is kept very separate from the writing. But I do think it's probably what, 3 weeks, a month?
Yeah, I went to the set of Romance with a Twist. I went myself. I paid to go to Ottawa. I was curious and I just was like, that's not that far. I'd love to go. They had, I think, 15 shooting days. So, and I think they shot like 5 days and had a weekend. So it was over the course of 3 days. But yeah, I think they're normally shot in 15 shooting days.
Oh, that's
Some
really
of the
fast.
some of the bigger Hallmark movies, and maybe The Finish Line also probably had a bigger budget. Um, a lot of these are ones that are like acquisitions where they're, the budgets are lower. So like I'm guessing something like the Biltmore Christmas, which is like their A movie of the year. They probably took more time, I'm guessing, but I don't really know. But in general, yeah, it's super, super fast. And it was really incredible on the set to see what a machine the production team was and how they were really able to set it up and make it look really good, right in the style of Hallmark, and just like march right through that and get that move, get it up and get it and just do it. What an amazing machine. Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about some of the Hallmark stars that they use again and again? And just what you think that connection with the audiences and the appeal um and all that.
I think it's part of what people love about the movies. I think that
But they're
is
seeing the
definitely
same
part of
person.
it. Yeah, seeing the same people over and over again. It was interesting a few years ago when the CEO left and he started his own channel, Great American Family. He started poaching some of the actors, and there was this moment where Hallmark started offering their actors like 20 picture deals, like it was like old Hollywood, the kind of thing that we haven't seen. I mean, I cannot think of another situation where they'd be like, Lisa Chabert signed a 10 picture deal with Hallmark. I don't know if she did, but I'm guessing she did.
Yeah.
I was wondering when you bring her up.
I still haven't seen, what is it, Hot Frosty?
Candace
I know you've seen
Cameron,
it.
Holly Robinson Pete. Yeah.
It's very funny. They definitely, it is a rare one that is very, very funny. That same writer wrote Merry Christmas, Ted Cooper this year, which was also by far one of my favorites of this Christmas season. But that's, again, it's like how that's how important the sort of actor loyalty is. You know what I mean? They're like, we want to keep, we don't want to lose Tyler Hines. People love Tyler Hines. So yeah, I don't know. I think it is definitely a key part. But I also know that you shouldn't really go to Hallmark with like we have an actor attached to this, because they want to make their own casting choices.
Sure. It sounds like it's all in-house. Like they have used the same production people, a lot of like it's just people who know how the system works and the same casting.
They have producers that they like to work with, but
Yeah.
not necessarily,
Right.
it's sort of project to project. I can't speak to all of the actors that people tune in for, but I know that Alexa and her husband, her real life husband, were playing opposite each other in my movie, and yeah, you get like a certain amount of movies every year. But I got to have a conversation with them before starting the film, and she shared some stories and experiences that helped really kind of shape the character. And there was something that her grandmother used to say that I was able to put in the film. So I don't know that you always are able to have that kind of pre conversation, but it was really helpful. And a friend of mine directed the film. I had recommended him, so I was able to talk to him about how the production was going. And they were troopers, because it was not a Christmas film, and it was very cold. It was like the dead of winter, and so there were a lot of outdoor scenes where she's wearing based like next to nothing, like strapless gowns. And yeah, he actually, in order, so that they wouldn't feel bad, I think he was directing shirtless as well. So that he was, it's like, if you're going to be cold, I'm going to be cold. But yeah, they were great to work with, and I think they had a lot of fun. So
It's amazing. And so how would you say, right, since you're spending a lot of time in your careers as of late in the love arena, right? Your characters trying to get love and standing in their own way and all that. I mean, has this like informed your own, life perspective on love? I know you're both married for a long time, but just sort of curious because sometimes work bleeds into our personal lives.
I need a minute to think.
I mean, I don't necessarily know personally, but I do know that it does make me very interested in people's love stories. I want to know how people met. I want to know what their love blocks. I want to know the story they're telling about the guy that they're seeing, about why he's not calling them. You know what I mean? All that sort of stuff that could maybe be turned into a love block. I want to know the conversations that people are having, the kind of the things that are going on, because it could be an interesting plot twist. Like I just recently was reading about pocketing, and I was like, okay, I don't know if that'll work for Hallmark, um, but I do, and I mean, in my own life, I do think that I don't know if I do more, but trying to, have an open heart, and like carry on that sort of hopeful, joyful energy of Hallmark in my daily life if I can, especially in this difficult time of horrors. You're like, can we look at this in a different way? I don't know. That's not a great answer, but that's what I got.
I do think, I'm very thankful I've been with my partner for 10 years, but prior to that, I was very single. And so I'm glad that I was able to have many dating experiences to pull from because, you're generally not approaching a Hallmark film from somebody that's been in a steady relationship for years. So that flux and that feeling of what it was like, you know, I I definitely I definitely pull from that when, and the feelings of trying to meet somebody and wanting to meet your person, but like Uma said, having these love blocks and feeling like, can I mesh my world with this person's world and still maintain, some sense of self. So yeah, nothing, I don't know that anything specifically has ended up on screen from my past, but I'm definitely glad for all the years of trial and error.
And
It's the one thing you fail up. You're supposed to kind of fail up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you fail, 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 win, done. Hopefully, and then it's a whole new ball game of keeping this going.
Definitely. With every relationship, however short, you learn something. You learn something about yourself, or you learn something about what you don't want to repeat the next time around. So that's absolutely true. I mean, you have to
so
fail
true.
to end up with something good, because if you stuck with the first person, it's like, well, you were young, not self-realized. There's a lot of stuff to learn about yourself before you can make yourself available for somebody else. So absolutely.
Yeah, every experience leads you to the next one, right? Hopefully with more knowledge. um so can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on next? And it might not be Hallmark related and you might not know, but we'd love to hear what you're working on right now.
Well, I've been pitching a lot of ideas. Nothing. It's been pretty slow right now. I have some that I do really like. I am actually considering maybe turning them into a book. Actually, we'll see. I haven't really ever written any long form prose, and as I try to, it's been very interesting to be like, oh, right, I'm not really interested in what the room looks like. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not writing any of those details. I'm just like plot and dialogue. Oh, right, like a movie. So we'll see if I can do that. But I have a play that I really love. It's called Midnight at Perkamore Mansion. It's a sex farce set in a haunted house. It's like Scooby-Doo meets Three's Company, and I love this really silly, goofy Halloween play very much. So I'm really focused on that right now, trying to hopefully get that up for. It takes place at Halloween, so hopefully try to get it produced for Halloween.
Nice.
That's so fun. Is that for Hallmark or
No, this is just a stage play.
Oh, just a stage play. I thought you said that.
Yeah. It's way
Yeah.
too sexy for Hallmark.
Right. Because, you know, when I was talking to the rom-com team, they were like, we're always looking for Halloween ideas, you
I
know?
know. Yeah, it is. That's a whole new world for them, the
Yeah.
Halloween. I haven't watched enough of them. I know they usually involve a friendly ghost. And I think I have one idea that I pitched like one sentence because I was like, yeah. But anyway, have you been thinking about Halloween?
I tried. I was for a
Mhm.
while I was like maybe something with a cranberry bog, like something that's fall-like, or at least a setting. But no, I didn't get far
Mhm.
enough into it. But yeah, that's exactly it. I'm now sitting down to come up with a slew of rom-com ideas. I've been kind of filing them away as I go. Like Uma said, you read something on social media or what have you, and then I'll submit. You don't want to overwhelm them, but I want to have like three fully formed ideas. The other thing about Hallmark, maybe people don't know, is there's not like a buying season. They're constantly in production, so it really just depends on. And each development executive is in charge of developing scripts, but as well as production. So if they have movies that are in production, then they're going to be less likely to be able to read ideas coming in and deciding if they want them. So you have to just time it just right. So I'm gearing up to submit a few more of those, hoping something gets through. And then also, yeah, working on a rom-com that I'm hoping to entice Netflix with. It's kind of like a game night. Um, so that should be fun. Basically, well, we'll leave it at that. And then I spent the better part of last year pitching shows. I pitched two shows to Hallmark. They of course develop a lot less TV than they do film, so you have a much better chance of selling a movie. But I pitched a couple shows and still waiting to hear back. And then, pitched shows to other networks as well. And it's, with the ever since the writer's strike, the industry has contracted a lot. So it's much harder to sell than it used to be. And then because people are buying less, then there's less opportunities for show staffing and that sort of thing. So it's a good time to work on your own stuff and be excited and creative about the things that you want to do as opposed to executing other people's ideas. So just having fun with, yeah, I think we all as writers have a little notebook of ideas where you're like, oh, I'm going to write that someday. I'm going to go back to that. So I have a pilot that I've always wanted to write that I might start as a short story, which also seems to have, people are having some luck selling them. But an experience about when I first moved to LA and I wasn't able to really leave New York behind. I kept going back to New York every 3 months. And eventually I subletted my apartment in LA, and the woman that was living there sold my furniture because she had been arrested and needed to make bail. And
My
I
God.
became when I got back to LA, I
Story.
became like entrenched in her life for a while, mostly because I
And
didn't have a lot going on.
furnitureless. And
Yeah,
furnitureless.
yeah. So anyway, so I think it could be a fun show. So I'm working on that.
All right.
Anything that, especially when you're pitching in the beginning, you always have to have a connection to the material, and sometimes that connection is real loose because it's like, well, I got this IP, and the producer asked me to develop it, and so here we are. But in the case of like, no, this really happened to me, I think it just makes the pitch stronger.
Yeah, for sure. Can speak from experience, it sounds like. But there's nothing like New York and Los Angeles and those big cities, and also just growing up, being in your 20s and your 30s, and the things that you learn and the crazy characters you encounter along the way. And
It's so true. I had so many more of those stories back in the day. I just feel like my life is it's a lot less of that these days. So sometimes I kind of miss all the adventures and misadventures of my 20s.
yeah, yeah. I was talking to someone today, and she was saying, she was like, "Oh, Ashley, I don't leave my house." I was like, "Oh, right. It's their house anymore, right? We do everything through the screen, online." Anyway,
I know. I mean, I just walk my dog.
House though. So
it is hard. Yeah, you do have to really put yourself out there to date, but
And I also do feel like the romances in Hallmark do sort of operate outside of the realities of the dating world. You know, they might allude to like, oh gosh, dating is terrible, but there's none of that horrible bad behavior the way there would be in a Netflix rom-com or another, another outlet's rom-com where it really is about the torture of the dating scene. Yeah.
It's so true because it's the way that people want to meet their person is organically. I'm just out in the world doing my thing and there they are, as
Yeah.
opposed to, swiping on an app. And
I'm
so I think
I'm just restoring a carousel and I meet a prince, of course.
exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely part of the fantasy, and it still happens organically for some. But
Well, nobody in a Hallmark movie probably has Tinder, is what you're saying.
Also that, yes.
Yeah, very, very rarely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't even think I've seen ghosting really of any kind in a Hallmark movie. If it happens, it's like because their phone got left in the car, and then it's like a big thing and a misunderstanding. Yeah.
What is pocketing? I meant to ask.
Oh, yeah. Pocketing is where you like kind of hide the person from, you're seeing somebody, but you never let them meet your friends or your parents. You kind of keep it a secret.
Oh,
Yeah.
secret lover.
and is that because
Pocketing. I've never heard
you're
that before.
crazy and obsessive, or is that because you are ashamed of them?
That you're
Well, right. I don't really know, but yeah, I do know somebody who who I feel like has lived this, and I'm very curious about this situation. But I was like, oh my gosh, there's a name for it. You know what I mean? Like discovering, going to a party and discovering that your significant other hasn't told anybody about you. You're like, oh God, that would
Terrible.
be, yeah. Yeah.
Put down
And that would be a
something.
great inciting incident for a rom-com because you'd be like, oh, we're breaking up. Because especially on Hallmark, there's never going to be like you found your boyfriend in bed with somebody else. Like that would never happen in a Hallmark movie. And even honestly, this is probably too harsh for Hallmark, but it could definitely be a rom-com inciting incident. I think that's what it is. I haven't really watched that many videos about it. I'm sure there's probably like 1,000 hours of pocketing content.
Oh my gosh.
Pocketing.
I know, learn something new every
I
day.
never did that.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I think it was ever done to me.
Well, one of the things we love to ask, and there are no wrong answers, but we'd love to hear what, in your opinion, what is the most romantic book that you've ever read? There's, people have had all sorts of answers. So
Oh God. Look at him.
Well, mine is kind of a movie answer. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Because it is kind of it is also a book. But and I don't even know that this is a romantic moment, but it is one of my very favorite like romance movie moments, is the end of the Emma Thompson Sense and Sensibility, when she finally realizes that Hugh Grant is not married, and she has the most amazing emotional outburst. And it's such a fantastic example of why we love, like, basically the point of a romance book or a romance movie is to keep them apart as long as possible so that when they finally come together, it's amazing. And they've done and it's Jane Austen, right, does such an amazing job of withholding them and keeping them apart. And it's just, it is, oh God, I just love it to death. I love that movie. I love that book. And I love Emma Thompson in that moment.
Emma Thompson's a gem.
I have a real quick. I have a children's pop-up book of Pride and Prejudice, and I read it to my daughter. And the other day, she's like, "Daddy, do it with the English accent." And I read the whole book like, "Mr. Potter, look over here."
That's so cute.
And
That's
there's Mr.
amazing.
Collins.
Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, and there's Mr. Collins, and I always say Ashley Collins, because I just imagine she's like a Harley Quinn romance protagonist. I don't know why.
God.
So, side note. Anyway,
Talia, what about you?
what about you, Talia?
This is going to be such a lame answer. But I was last year, I love listening to audiobooks because in LA we're always in our car, and I tend to listen to a lot of a lot of memoirs. And I just remember I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert as well, and and Big Magic was her podcast, and just everything that she has to say about creativity. And I really was so taken with Eat, Pray, Love. I love the movie as well, but I love that. And to me, travel, it's Hallmark does so many films like in other places, and I think it's like you're having a romance with yourself by being like, all right, I miss travel. I have a 2-year-old now, so I really haven't gone anywhere since he was born. But before he was born, I took a baby moon with a friend to Scotland, and you just have like a romance with yourself, and it was just, I don't know, I was just really inspired by that, and just sort of her courage to choose herself, at the beginning and all the way through, even though it didn't work out. I think there's a lesson in that as well, right? Is that, just because you end up, I mean, this wouldn't be the end of the Hallmark film, but for in real life, just because a relationship, they always say a reason, a season, a lifetime with friendships, and I think, potentially romantic relationships as well. There's nothing wrong about, having a romance and then realizing, like, you're not meant to be together for the rest of your lives. And I think, I don't know, there was something, yeah, really nice about that you choose to be with somebody every day, and you have to grow together or you grow apart.
I love it. Well, and then, so what about, I mean, Uma, you sort of have an answer, but what about the most romantic movie? And
well, that was the thing, that was my answer for the
Yeah,
most
you sort of
romantic
had
movie.
an
I'm
answer.
sorry I used it.
That's
I also another really romantic moment that I love the movie Once. And even though the final gesture at the end, sorry, spoiler alerts, like they're not going to be together. But when he buys her that piano, like it just cracks my heart open. So anytime, like, acts of kindness in that way, like where someone is really, I know to use this like term that's so overused, but like really seen, it's like so specifically, I see you and I want you to be happy. Oh God. Anyway, so that one just kills me. And I love all the music in that movie.
Yeah, and it became a great stage musical too.
Yes.
Yeah, really great.
I also really love the movie The Cutting Edge.
Oh my
Oh
God.
God, I love that one.
Big-
Figure
so big.
skating, right?
It's like formative, I think, in my sort of love of the rom-com genre, of the enemies to lovers, of the,
Oh my
the
God.
banter.
I love that movie.
It's just so, and then also like the aspirational fantasy of them winning the Olympics. Like it's just everything you want in a rom-com. And I just am delighted in it. And I actually went back to watch it when I was writing Romance with a Twist, because it's kind of a sports movie also. And there's some
that counts.
that I was inspired, and kind of just like our little Easter eggs to me from Cutting Edge. So, and it is.
They kiss on the ice skating rink on the skate, like, because I love you. Oh my God. DB Sweeney, Moira Kelly. Oh my God.
And then there's the fact that they learned to figure skate for that movie. I'm sure they had doubles.
But they learned to fall in, but they also learned to fall in love.
Yeah, I mean that's impressive. As you know,
They learned to fall in love.
as an actor, I'm certainly not going to be figure skating in a role. I don't know about you.
I will fall on my ass because that's what happens when I try to skate.
You think you would? I think it would be a fun excuse to learn to, figure skate or, ride horses or do aerial.
Yeah.
I can ride a horse.
Yeah.
But I'm not skating. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Unless you want to do a comedy like Goon 3 and I'm just crashing into people, then. So, anyway. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to remember. Yeah, sorry, I'm like searching my brain for movies that actually like really moved me, and I was thinking like was the Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Would you consider that? It's not a. I mean, it's certainly not a rom-com.
Schnabel, right?
Yeah,
Oh.
I think sometimes, I mean, that was with his caretaker. So there wasn't like it wasn't romantic per se, but I found that movie to be so moving. And then in the category of rom-com, I love The Holiday. So because I think, going back to what I said before, I just think sometimes, picking yourself up from your everyday life and going somewhere else, it gives you different perspective and kind of opens you up to different things and having an adventure and not keeping up those same blocks and those same triggers and all of that. So I don't know, it's just such a fun, easy movie to watch.
It is true that when you go through any movie you don't know, but if you go or a Hallmark movie and you look at the descriptions or the log line, the one-liners, and when they say that, yeah, oh they travel to Ireland or they go somewhere, you're like, oh, now I want to watch this. They're going somewhere, you know. So yeah,
Just seeing a different setting. I mean, I was such a big fan of Outlander for that reason. It was just, in LA, you just have constant sun. I'm like, I just want to see rain and green fields and yeah.
great. And then our last question is: it can be a most romantic date, meal, or vacation. These can be real, as in you actually ate this food, went on this date, went on this vacation, or they can be imagined, like on your bucket list.
I will give a shout out to my husband. He's pretty good at romantic surprises. And the one that jumped into my head is we celebrate our kiss anniversary because we met
Oh, come
doing a theater.
on.
Thank you. We met doing a theater program, and basically it was like we were all living together before, we didn't go on a first date or anything. It was like one day we were friends and then we kissed and then we were attached the rest of the summer. So it was our kiss anniversary, and he's like, oh, I've made a reservation somewhere. And I'm, but I'm not going to tell you where it is. It's a surprise. And I'm like, okay, well, what should I wear? He's like, it's pretty casual, but you can be nice, but we might sit outside. So, bring something, and I was like, okay. And we get in the car and he's like, oh, I forgot my wallet. So we have to turn back. And so he turns back and goes around this loop, the way to go back. And that loop goes by the water. And he's like, wait, what is that out there? Do you see that? And I'm like, huh. And at this point, I'm like, something's up, right? And he had set out on this dock on the water. He had set out like a cooler and Prosecco, and it was our 18th kiss anniversary. So there were 18 oysters, and we sat on there and like slurped the oysters. And then if you've never done this, I highly recommend where you like eat oysters and then chuck them into the water. Oh, it's the best thing ever. And just, I love, and I try to do this actually a lot in Hallmarks, like surprises where there's like a little bit of a misdirect, like the best kind of lie, like a little bit of a misdirect, and then a delightful surprise, and also like a very personal callback to your life, like 18 oysters. So anyway, that's my little romance tidbit. So good job, Christian.
I think I'd heard that story before, and I actually told my husband recently because he was like, Whole Foods has dollar oysters on Fridays. He's like, I wish we knew how to shuck them. I said, we have to get a lesson from Uma's husband on shucking oysters.
I did leave out that part of the story where the shucking was a challenge, and I was very concerned that he might have sliced.
Yeah, that's a serious thing. You don't want to slice fingers off.
I was like, number one thing, we're not going to the emergency room. But he had gotten he'd gotten the right gear and like the glove and everything, and it was
glove. Wear protection, everybody.
Smile the glove. Smile tap reference.
And what about you, Talia?
Can I pat my own back with a romantic date?
Yes.
So when my partner and I celebrated our first anniversary, I surprised him with a trip to San Diego. There's it's like a wildlife preserve run by this couple called Nurtured by Nature, and they have all of these different animals there. And the tour ends with you going into a swimming pool and swimming with their otters. There's like 5 of them, and you wear t-shirts, in the pool, and they like climb up your t-shirts. And I just remember my partner, for whatever reason, they loved him the best. And there was other people on the trip in the pool that were waiting to get some time with the otters, but they just wouldn't leave his shirt or his like, I don't know if it was like his body temperature or what, but oh my God, that was so fun. It was such a fun trip, and we had a good time.
Otters are like dogs of the sea. Dogs have favorites. They like them.
They're so smart too. They're really, really smart otters.
Yeah.
My jaw is on the floor, and I've already just written that down because I can't wait to take somebody there.
Oh yeah, it was so special. And all the other, they've like armadillos and sloths, and they've got super cool.
That sounds amazing. Oh. And then I would love to, I know you guys are busy pitching and writing, but you also work with other people who might be interested in developing their own scripts or romance. So if you can tell our audience a little bit about that in case they want to get to know you a little more.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I teach a class on writing, how to write a Hallmark pitch. And basically we, you come in with some ideas, we'll pick the one that we like the best. And then, writing, how to write a one pager and how to, make sure that your story is clear and on brand. And I run that class with a producer, and the last class you get to pitch your idea to her. And again, the Hallmark world is so, open. They're so thirsty for new ideas that it really is a place where you can get in if they really are open to new writers, and everyone's always looking for new ideas. So yeah, look me up, umaencrocci.com, and come join me for a class. I hope that's what you meant, Ashley. I'm not sure.
That's totally what I meant. That's totally what I meant. Yeah. Talia.
Well, I have taught before through ProPath, a rom-com writing class, but I don't have one on the schedule currently, but I do a lot of one-on-one work with people. So if you have an idea that you want fleshed out, or if you have a script that you're looking for a consult to sort of get to the next draft, I do that kind of work as well. And I'm at taliagonzalez.net.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you guys.
Good.
It's been so
Thank
much
you so much
fun
for coming
talking
on.
to you both about the business of love on the screen. And thank you for sharing your talent and your wisdom and your meet cutes.
Elbow, wrist, elbow, wrist.
Yeah.
It's lovely to meet you, Talia. I also love Big Magic. It's such a good good book on creativity, and it's also just nice to. The few times I've talked to other Hallmark writers, just to be like, oh right, yeah, this is a very strange world that we're in, and it's just nice to know you're not alone.
Definitely, yeah. And something I probably could go back and have it. It would have the same effect. It's like I've had some time away. I'm like, if you need a dose of creativity, going back to it, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Best of luck with the book, guys. I hope
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Can't wait for you to get guys a signed copy.